Welcome back to Nightly Nonsense, where we either create nonsense or try to make some sense out of the nonsense. Listen, we just finished up a whole series on this whole nonsense and sense thing and God thing and how to figure it all out, right? My favorite part of that whole little series was, listen, you just need to understand there's a whole bunch of people who don't want you to make sense out of their nonsense. That's just where they are. They're so used to living in nonsense that they don't know what to do when it's not nonsense, right? That's just the way it works for them. I want to go from there and I want to transition into a familiar story. I want to pick out the next few nights just a few truths out of the book of Jonah. Right? Jonah is super relevant for us today, right? God hasn't changed. God hasn't changed who he is, how he thinks, how he feels, what his plan is. God has this incessant, crazy, out of this world, because that's where he is, desire to let people know that they're off track. Well, I don't know how he has that, why he has that. I mean, if you were God, would you spend a whole bunch of your time just trying to say to people, hey, you're a little off track. Hey, you're a little off track. Hey, you're a little off track. Hey, bad things are coming to you. You're off track. I mean, imagine spending your whole day warning people all the time. Just warning them, hey, that's going to cost you. Hey, that's going to cost you. If you have that heart, right? If you have that heart, you have the heart of God. Right? God's desire is to be consistently saying to us, hey, wise up. Right? No, again, he equally wants us to know that we're loved. He equally wants us to be about what he has for us. But here's the problem. This is what he kept trying to say to the Israelites. I can't use you the way that I want to use you if you have sin. If you're battling this desire, I want things my way, but I also want to do it God's way. So then what happens is we tend to mush those things together, and now we got my way, which now becomes God's way. We don't mush God's way and our way together. We simply bring God on to our way. It's what we want to do. And so God is constantly having to create these surgical moments where he's trying to dissect through who we are, get to who he is. Like that's the plan, right? Hey, you said you wanted to be like Jesus. You said you wanted to be like me. But there's a whole bunch of you in this moment. There's a whole bunch of you in this moment. And so now I've got to sift through that so I can get to Jesus. You understand? That's the problem with me on any given Sunday or any given time that I'm speaking, like on Nightly Nonsense. I have to allow myself to be a conduit for God. And then God's like, sure, Andy, I'll use you. But the more junk you have in your life, the harder it is for anybody to see Jesus. Right? We don't go get more junk so that we can be more Jesus. That's not how it works. Paul said, nope, that's not how it works. Right? We're to empty ourselves so that we can be more Jesus to those around us. Then he will use us in a way that's conducive with his plan and purpose. Now, in the story of Jonah, we find out that even if we don't get there, right? Even if we don't want to be a conduit, even if we refuse to be a conduit, God still will use people to be a conduit of himself to others. Think about that, because you probably can give me a couple examples of times when you didn't feel like Jesus, but somebody says, thank you. Thank you for that word. Thank you for the gift. Thank you for the food. Thank you for whatever it is. Man, it was the right thing at the right time. And you know that the entire time you were doing it, you were mumbling and grumbling and stumbling around with your Christianity. But God says, I'm going to use you anyway. That's the cool thing about the story about Jonah. Is that God's going to use whoever, whenever, however. So here's the question tonight. We're going to end it right here as we get ready for the book of Jonah. And we're asking this question for you to chew on, right? Are you a conduit that God can use, right? Are you clean, right? Can God flow through you without any disturbances, hindrances, right? Plugs, right? Blogs, anything else, right? Anything that's in the conduit. Are you cleaned out, ready to go? The word roto-rooter comes to mind. Not really sure why. Just pops in my head, right? Like sometimes God's got to go through and clean the pipes. Why? He wants to use you, not for your purpose, not for your glory, but for my purpose, God's purpose, he says, his glory, right? Funny, as we were getting ready to get started, my picture was bigger than the world behind me, right? What a great object lesson. You know, sometimes God uses us. Sometimes we start collecting a bunch of garbage. Sometimes the enemy uses whatever it is. But sometimes we actually think that we're bigger than the world behind us. We're more important. We're the only one doing it right. We're the only one, right? That for the people like Elijah who tried to whine to God and say, I'm the only one doing it right. Elijah got smucked by God, right? When God said, yeah, no, not true. 7,000 other people have been doing it just as well as you, right? They've been trying to, right? The question tonight, are you a conduit God can use? Hey, we'll see you tomorrow night. Nightly Nonsense. Still going to talk about Jonah.